We're going to continue on with our previous example file inside the Mastercam simulator and look at verify. So we left off in backplot. I'm going to switch right over to verify inside the Mastercam simulator. And let's just clean up some things before we begin. I'm going to make my tool solid. I have the workpiece shown, but it's not going to really help much because it's hidden behind the stock model. The fixture is shown, and that's that green shape here. And that actually covers two entities. It's our current vise, which I believe was on level 205, and we have another piece here which was on another level, and we're using that as well because that is used to hold this piece in place. We can also select our stock, and in this case this is our stock model that is representing our stock, and right now it's transparent. We're going to click it once and then again to turn it back on. And just to recap, if I minimize this for a minute, we are simulating everything in setup 2 here. So we're simulating this OptiRef toolpath, and then the equal scallop toolpath, the dynamic mill in the holes, and then the two curve 5-axis toolpaths. Now, interesting to note here, in this curve 5-axis toolpath we have here, there are no features in here that represent the grooves, because those toolpaths were actually created previously and they were created using wireframe geometry. So technically, we'll be gouging our part because the part itself does not have the groove in it, but we're putting the grooves in afterwards. So back to the simulator, let's do this. Let's make sure the stop condition is set to operation change. We will crank up our precision a little bit. And in some cases throughout this video, I may actually speed up the video so we can watch the entire thing in simulation, but instead of taking 5 or 10 minutes to watch it, it'll be sped up so we don't have to wait as long. Let's hit play here. And as you can see, it's working its way from the outside in because that's part of that toolpath. The yellow here is because of our color loop option. So while it's running, if we go to verify and click on color loop, and then go into the file options, you'll see that under graphics, we can choose exactly the various color loops. So the first toolpath will be yellow, the second one will be blue, and so forth. So that's why these colors will show up on the model here. It's because of the settings here. Let's hit cancel. While this is verifying, let's experiment with showing the toolpath inside of verify. So let's go to the home tab, and we're going to click on toolpath. But what do we want to see? We don't want to see the whole thing here. We want to see the current operation, and we're going to choose trace. So as you can see, the toolpath is being removed as the tool is going over the toolpath. If we chose follow instead, we're going to get rid of everything below, and as the tool moves throughout the part, it's going to leave behind it the toolpath. I'm going to choose segment, and we can do both. And so as you can see here, if we slow this down a little bit so we can understand it better, it has a 10 motion or segment ahead, and it's got 100 behind. So this tail that is dragging behind it is 100 toolpath moves. And in front of it, it's 10. And the reason we have that is because we're set to both here. I'm going to speed this up a little bit, and we're going to let this record, and we'll edit through it to make it faster, but that way we can see exactly how this part looks after the roughing is done. Because as expected, it should stop after it roughs this first toolpath. Now, since we got to the end of that operation, you'll see here that the simulation has been paused due to the following stop condition. The operation changed. So before I hit play again, I'm going to actually save a bookmark. And that's by going down here and clicking on Create Bookmark. So what that will do is that'll put a bookmark right here in our timeline. So at any time, if I wanted to fast forward or rewind, when I go back to this bookmark, the part will be in this verified state. In other words, if I go back here, we don't see the part back in its verified state because I would have had to save a bookmark here. Then you could see it partially machined. But if I go here, now we'll see this verified state with this toolpath. So let's hit play again. And as you can see, that was a finishing toolpath, and we did edit the video to make it fast or a little faster so we didn't have to wait that whole time. Now the next one should be the dynamic milling. So let's just reduce the speed a little bit. And let's also save a bookmark here. And by the way, we could create automatic bookmarks at every operation change or tool change and so forth. At this point, we're just going to manually do it. Let's hit play here. And so these are the holes it's creating. As you can see, it's working its way in there. And this is the purple color because the first one was yellow, second one was blue, and this third one is purple because of the color loop option. And if we want to, we can speed this up a little bit. You briefly saw that toolpath motion there because we're doing the segment. And while this is doing this, we can also look at some other options. For example, under the View tab, you could change workpiece. And what that'll do is that focuses the Mastercam simulator on the workpiece. You can also do the tool. And what the tool will do, if we rewind this a little bit, the tool is being focused and the workpiece is moving. We're going to go back to multiple workpiece. And let's get to our right spot here. So let's go to this bookmark. And this is where we start the machining of the holes. So let's move ahead a little bit. And we'll hit play and speed it up to get to the end there. And based on our op condition here, we should stop. So now we're going to be looking at the 5-axis toolpath. And again, this 5-axis toolpath we did not create. It was part of the file, but we can at least utilize it to simulate. So let's hit play. And you can see how it works through that. Now, just to experiment, we can also tell it to stop on a collision. Now, we're not too familiar with this toolpath right here, but as you recall, this 5-axis toolpath is cutting the part because we don't have those grooves designed into the model. So it'll be interesting to see here if the collision actually gets caught. And as you can see, it does not, based on the tolerances or our settings inside of collisions. For example, under collision report, there do not appear to be any collisions. Now we can adjust that a little bit if needed, where we could tell it to look for the stock and determine more accurately if there was a collision. So let's do that now. If we go back to this bookmark, before we had any of the holes machined, we'll go through and we'll simulate these holes being machined again. And under the stop condition, I'll make sure that collision is turned on. However, one of the things we need to do inside the File Options menu is actually tell it what to look for collision checking. So I'm going to tell it to identify a collision between the tool and the workpiece. And if you recall, the workpiece does not have those grooves in it. So when that 5-axis toolpath goes into the workpiece, it should trigger a collision. And we'll make sure that collision is turned on. And if I do this and I hit the letter S key to step through it, step by step, it's not going to let me continue because a simulation has been paused due to the following stop condition: a collision occurred. So the interesting thing is if I hit play, every collision is going to be detected here and it's going to stop. So let's turn that off. Turn off the collision and then just hit play. So as you can see, it detected a collision, but in this case we needed to tell the options inside a Mastercam simulator, what those collisions actually are. And let's finish this through to get to the other side. And now we have our finished part. And so we can see in this case the verified toolpath results. And like we saw earlier, if we went through and turned off the color loop, we'd see that single color representing the entire part. Now regarding that collision, if we went to compare and turned on compare, it's going to start asking for geometry. So what are we comparing against? And as you can see here, we have our stock and we have our model. And there's our model. And then you can also choose, for example, what the workpiece is, and you can browse for the workpiece. Let's keep it as is. And for stock to leave, we'll keep a 0 and we will hit refresh. And in this case, let's go in to the view, to the home tab and turn off workpiece. And as you can see, Mastercam does see this as collisions, and we expected this because if you remember, these grooves are not in the model. So as you can see, the red and the dark red were going down into the part by a few thousandths, which is simulating that compare. So this is as expected, but here's where we can compare the designed model to the machined model. Of course, right here, we're looking at the stock. And if you want to look at the model as well, you can see that. Of course, the model hides the compare issue, so that's why we turn that off. And we also have some options here to work with the tolerance. I'm just going to cancel out of that. And when we're done, we can go back and to verify and turn off compare. And as you can see, we're back to where we were. So in the next lesson, we'll take this one step further and we'll look at the simulator option, specifically on the Home tab, the simulation inside of Mastercam Simulator.